Here's the deal. Sales isn't about pushing harder, talking better, or flooding inboxes. That's noise, not strategy. Real business development? It's about presence, precision, and knowing exactly how the room feels before you open your mouth. Jake Stahl, author of Own the Room, How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected, has spent over 30 years training teams across 6 countries and 47 states, teaching solopreneurs how to turn conversations into conversion. Known as the mind mechanic, people who have been trained by him say he has the uncanny ability to break down human behavior and rebuild it into real, repeatable influence. This is where communication becomes your unfair advantage. Welcome to Own the Room with Jake Stahl.
Everyone, welcome back to Own the Room. I am really excited for the guest today. He is an author. He is an expert on crypto and real estate. He's an expert on real estate with distressed properties. Just amazing person. He has a fantastic podcast, if you haven't heard it before, called Know Your Shit Podcast. And it is well worth a listen. And Josh, I am just so excited to have you on the show today. Thanks for coming on.
Oh man, Jake, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, Josh, let's start with if you would do me a favor, give a little bit of a background about yourself for the audience because I'm just not going to do it justice.
Yeah, I think it's a broken road type of thing. You approach the opportunities that come your way, and for me, the big impetus was in 2008. I really got wiped out. I was technically positioned well in any other market, wasn't over leveraged, and lost everything. That forced me to have a very real, serious conversation as to what am I going to do to build that back. And so that put me into real estate. And I spent I'm still in real estate. Um, but I spent a lot of time learning how to do that. I spent a lot of time taking a lot of classes because I'm not going to be lie, Jake. I was terrified of making a mistake with somebody else's money. I had just made what should have been technically fine, and I made mistakes. And it's one thing to cost you money. If it hurts somebody else, though, it's just really unacceptable. And so I took a lot of classes, and I started to become really successful in the list. I mean, it started to really crush it. Like, nobody else was making money, and I'm, 70, 80 active listings all the time, crushing it. And as a solo agent, no team, just me, right? And I started to realize that all the stuff that I'm learning in classes, that like maybe 1 or 2% of it was good stuff. And really that was dependent upon who the instructor was. The instructor would be like, give you like all right, guys, the way it really works is kind of moments.
Right.
And I was like, man, that is like, I'll go there for 2 days to get two of those moments out of the entire 2 days. And so
Yeah.
I went to the administration where I took a lot of the classes, and I said, guys, there's what you're teaching and then what works. And those two things really aren't the same thing most of the time. And so they told me, go ahead and, start to write classes. So I did. I started writing classes, and they wound up ghosting me. They didn't let me put them on there. Long story, but eventually went from they wouldn't talk to me anymore to I became their speaker of the year a couple of times. And the way I was doing it was trying to make, the entire class those 2-second moments that I used to get, like the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of got around, and I kept getting hit with, you should do a class on this, and you should do a class on that. And so now we're up to 49 that I've written and gotten approved by the state that I teach all over the world at this point. I mean, I even go to other countries to help them with real estate stuff, especially when it comes to like analysis, which doesn't matter where you are, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
From that came the popular book, Roadmap the American Dream, which is a book about how money and investing works. And then after that, McGraw-Hill gave me the book deal to write Close for Life, which is about my philosophy, which is, don't close a deal, close a customer forever. Like they should want to do every deal. Like, why would they want to, they've worked with you for months. Why would they want to work with anybody else? If you haven't done that, man, you really screwed up. Um, and then most recently we did Success for Life, which is a book that's an anthology we put together. And yeah, that's kind of, I think, the very relatively long and robust version of the story.
Josh, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's just start with this. A lot of people, they hit a roadblock So people don't want to hear what they have to say. They don't want to buy into their philosophy, but it sounds like you broke through that.
Mhm.
So what was it that made you go, screw it? I don't care what other people think. This is the real way to do things. And what made you persevere?
I was blessed to have a father born in 1930 who was a very successful businessman who, as tough, like everything you think of a dad born in 1930, tough. That was him, and then some, right? But the thing that when, in fact, my sister and I were just talking about it the other day, as impatient as he could be, as tough as he could be, when it came to explaining something, he was always very patient. He would explain it over and over and over again till you got it.
Yeah.
And so, like, how does this work? And so, like, it wound up being, Jake, that I was getting conflicting information. I was getting what I was told in school. Go in, ask a bunch of open-ended questions, make them
Yeah.
feel heard. And then I was getting what my dad had taught me. And, like, hey, nobody owes you respect. You walk in the room with an opportunity to earn that respect, earn the respect. And so I just started to come about it from the standpoint of not how do I close this deal, which is all that real estate actually incentivizes, and how do I close this customer to be the only person they'll ever work with. And it seems like it should be the same thing, but believe me, it's not. Agents leave so much on the table when it comes to building the respect, the trust that they need with customers, because really the bar in our industry is, can you get paid? Can you get a check?
Right.
And I abandoned that idea pretty early on because the other thing was there weren't a lot of voices around. 2008, I start. Everybody's figuring out how not to be in the office. Everybody's figuring out how not to do real estate because there's nothing to be done.
Yeah.
And I'm in there like I didn't have a choice. I had to make it work. It's amazing what you can do, Jake, when you take away other options from yourself.
So true. Yeah, when you realize it's your only option, it changed the landscape dramatically.
I go one step further, man. I've determined I can't trust me with certain options. If I give me certain options, I'm not going to do what I want to see me do. So, like, I just can't trust me that far.
I love that. So your inner monologue is as strict as your dad was.
Oh yeah, no, my ability to kick my own ass is I have to I have to play mom now. Like, honey, I think you're being a little too hard on him at times.
So Josh, there's no secret that a couple of years ago we kind of went through that real estate boom, right?
Yep.
All the houses were skyrocketing, and true confession, I sold my house during that time and moved and did extremely well. So
Nice.
but what I saw then is friends of mine who were in real estate really struggled as the market started to settle back into place.
Mhm.
So, what did you do that was different that made you stand out? Like, what's the thing that makes Josh different than that rep that said, "Hey, during the great time, I'm really sucking in paychecks, and now I'm just struggling through it."
I think it's an awareness that markets and transitions have this kind of Mexican standoff. I don't know if you're allowed to say that anymore. The Mexican standoff. We're going to go
I'd
with it.
say it
So
on my show.
look, this Mexican standoff, right? With buyers saying, I'm not going to pay that. And sellers saying, well, I'm not going to take that. Right. And there's this period where they find each other. I lived through it. For me, I had a lot of peace about it because I lived through 2008 where it was the house was 450 and the price that buyers wound up paying for it was 92,000, right? And
Right.
eventually the
Yeah.
house found 92,000. So like I know that it gets there. But I think that for me it was having set myself up well to realize there was going to be some months here where it was going to be relatively lean.
Right.
I have to plan for that. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, right? You gotta leave some slack in there. And I started planning for immediately where the opportunities are. I'm actually very excited about the market that we're in right now. I mean, I'm doing a $25 million raise for my hedge fund because I see the assets that are out there, the opportunity. I can pick stuff up.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I stopped doing what my business had always been about, Jake, which is I stopped taking listings. I mean, unless that sell, I'm like, look, there's 80 available, three closed in the last 6 months. Unless you want to do what we got to do to be one of those three in the next 6 months, You don't want to be on the market because I can get it sold, but you're not going to like how it feels to have that happen because we're going to be going with our hat in our hand to the buyer saying, please, I have some more. That's the
Right.
position. I
Yeah.
start I started leaning into. I told everybody, you work buyers. It is going to be so much easier to close a buyer for life than it is going to be to close a seller for life because you can do things for a buyer you don't have been able to do in 25 years. Because unlike the end of the housing crisis where there was no lending available, now you have sellers that need to sell and you have buyers that have not only leverage but access to capital that they didn't have at the end of 2008. I mean, there's so many products out there to help people buy. So to me, I'm always looking for where the opportunity is. I understand every market gets thrown out of equilibrium. When that
Yeah.
happens, what worked doesn't work, and something different though has now been incentivized to work better. Right now, buyers leverage all day long.
So one of the things you said, Josh, on your podcast, and I've heard you say it over and over again because I'm a fan of your podcast. I've
Thank
heard
you.
you say it over and over again is don't avoid the conversation about the competitors. As a matter of fact, kind of hit it head on. And I
Totally.
think one of the things that you've talked about in your show is listen, if you're not going to go with me and you're going to go with somebody else, watch out for A, B, C, and D. And that makes the person come back to you and say, well, thanks for the advice, but can I hire you? Right?
Yeah, I think if you almost stand that on its head a little bit and start with, all right, look, you should probably hire somebody for real estate. And like you're almost recusing yourself a little bit.
Right. Yeah, it's not me.
Uh, Jake, look, if you're looking to buy something, here's what you should do. This is what you got to look out for. This is what the bad stuff that's going on out there is. This is the stuff that's good that I think there's opportunities. Here's the thing. You should probably hire an agent. Now, if you hire an agent, Jake, there's a lot of bums out there. All right. Anybody that's doing this, they're a loser. All right. Like right away, you see it, just nice to meet you. Exit stage right. Get the hell out of there. All right. What you're looking for is somebody that's doing this. These are the signs of something. This is how we as agents sort of tell who are the ones that are players. That's the kind of conversation I would have with them. And then I would probably move to a market conversation, like something very market heavy, talking about where the pressures are. I'm actually a believer in investing more in them up front to make them the best possible buyer they could be. And they tend to reward me at the end of that in a very easy way with their business. But my inner goal has to not be the sale. I mean, I want the sale. I want the customer,
Well, of course.
but let me pay it forward for them and do them a solid, right? Let me be the person that they always call. I mean, I tell a story about my dad. My dad was a guy, he was a savvy businessman. He'd go to different people, but if he had somebody that took good care of him, he had a guy, right? And so in 19 throughout the 1960s and 1970s, he came down to Florida, and he used to go to Ocean Cadillac. That was the Cadillac dealership down there, and he'd buy a car, and there was a guy named Lippy, Bernard Lipman. That was the guy my dad dealt with. So he bought a new Cadillac, at least one every year, all the way up till 1975, and then things changed, and he stopped. Fast forward 1988, he goes back in to buy another car. Well, he didn't want to talk to anybody but Lippy. Lippy's retired. Lippy, he gets him to get the guy out of retirement to come sell him four Cadillacs because that's his guy.
Love it.
And
Yeah.
like that's the kind of sales that how much better is this world if we have those kind of relationships? Is it because buyers have gotten so that they won't give you that kind of no, my father was the most cynical guy. He was a New Yorker, for God's sake. I mean, he's like cynical and all kinds of stuff. It wasn't that. It's that on the sales side, we don't realize that these people are the gatekeepers. This is an annuity that I vest in if I do this job well enough. And so if I make a little whatever. I mean, I'm never a guy to like cut what my comp is or anything. Like I don't really do that. But I give them something that's really hard for them to duplicate someplace else.
So, Josh, you do a lot of training. What do you say to the people? And I'm sure you get them because I know as a coach, I get them. What do you say to the people that are like, I don't have time to invest time? I need to sale now. Business is tough. Gimme. I got to get going. What do you say to those people? Because you know that it's almost the exact opposite that's true.
Sure.
Invest the time now, make sure you get that return. But what do you say to those people?
Well, I say to them, you might not have time to learn how to fly the plane if you got to get to LaGuardia, but jumping in and just trying to work the controls and hope to get there probably isn't going to work out so well for you. I don't think that the reason you don't have the time is you're not prioritizing the right things. And if you continue to do what you're doing, you'll never have the time. I kind of broke when I wrote Close for Life, I broke it down this way. I think there's two jobs in real estate. Know what the hell you're doing, market yourself as someone who knows what the hell they're doing. Agents want to skip job one and go to job two. And I want to take and put a caveat on here, Jake. I I know that people need to make money and survive. I'm not
Right.
pie in the sky when you die, but you work rentals, you do what you got to do. My daddy raised me. If there's a job to be done, you get your hands dirty, you get in there like an animal, do whatever the hell's got to be done. You got to dig
Yeah.
ditch. Just because you're the CEO, you got to dig a ditch today. You get a shovel, you start digging a ditch. You show your men
Right.
how to dig a ditch. That's how you lead, right? You have to lead you through this. This is the thing. There's this leadership of yourself through these painful times where you have to see you out there grinding and doing the hard stuff. If the problem is the good times make us soft. We're like, oh, but
Amen.
my manager, oh, you
Right.
know,
My hands will get calloused.
yeah, like I always took pride in the fact that I had calluses on my hands, no matter how much money I made. I did the work. And so the cool thing about that is when times get hard, I know on the inside, the little voice on the inside, that I'm a guy that does the work. I'm a guy that does the things that when push comes to shove and there's that decision that everybody faces at some point every day in every situation,
Yeah.
are you going to go, or you know what, you've done enough, you could stop. I want to be the person that makes the decision that 99 out of 100 people won't make, the harder one, because that'll entitle me to the results that 99 out of 100 people will never see. And so that little challenge within me is the mental games I play to try to get through those hard times. Like, how am I going to, like, geez, how are we going to pay the credit card bill this month?
Yeah. I'm a big one. Ever since I was a kid, I always thought I needed to earn the right to relax.
Hmm.
So when I go to sit down at night or have dinner, I think to myself, did I earn this time?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
100%. I mean, I've actually systematized that because I know there's like sit down and relax, and then the oh crap, what about? Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I have made it where there's like throughout the course of the day, I am working to the nirvana of couch and Netflix. Like, so that when I do it, I am like completely like I'm the guy that just survived Iwo Jima. They got me
Right.
on an island chilling out. Like, you know what? Take a break. That's how I gotta feel to really do it. And so like giving myself, and this is another one of the things I'm a big believer in, that clarity as to when I'm done, when I've done enough
Yeah.
to be able to because otherwise if I don't, like you, it sounds like I'm just so used to the whip
Oh, yeah.
force that like it's like, why'd you stop whipping? Am I doing something wrong? Why'd you stop whipping me? Like it's weird. And so
Yeah.
by doing it that way, I've actually given myself greater clarity, and I'm able to enjoy my off times a lot more.
Yeah, I'm with you. There'll be times I'm sitting down and relaxing and I'll be watching something and I'll look and I'll shake my head and I'll go, shit.
Yep.
And so I have to run up to my office, get three more things done, and then
Yep.
it's like, now I earned it.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Now, my goal is to never have those moments because every time I think of something, it's put someplace where it's going to remind me when I need to do it. And so like I can kind of rest in the systems, that the
Yeah,
systems are protecting me from making one of those mistakes. Because the busier you get, the more terrifying it gets. Wait a second, there's plates there, there's plates there. I got a
yeah.
book deal over here, and I'm working this one with this guy, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it does get to be a lot. And Josh, our main listener base is solopreneurs, fractionals, people who are out there on their own, sitting in their house each day, trying to figure out, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? So let me ask you this, Josh, from somebody who's been there, you had that loss moment, which I'm sure was just an absolute lesson for you, that changed the way you look at things. How does Josh deal with those stressful moments? Those moments where you're like, son of a bitch, I can't get a break. I just need something to give. How does Josh work on those moments?
Um, I'm not gonna lie, Jake. I always have a sense of providence that, I'm here to do something, and I'm also pretty stupid. So sometimes the way I got to learn the lesson, the way the man's got to teach me the lesson is a little rougher because I'm dense.
Yeah.
So even when things got really bad, like I didn't complain or anything like that. It was like, all right, what's the next thing we got to do? And that's just kind of, I started working for my dad when I was 9, right? He homeschooled me in the afternoon, had a teacher, hired a teacher to homeschool me in the afternoon. He started working me from 6 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was my entire, from all the way through high school. And so, bad stuff would happen. The guy that was supposed to show up with the bread would show up late. The oven would break, because we had a school cafeteria operation, and it was always, that very much that from Broadway, the show must go on.
Yeah.
The main guy just broke his leg. All right, get the understudy and makeup. Like
Yeah.
what's the next thing? And so uh, I don't really give myself a ton of time like if I'm gonna do that, I do that on my own time, if you will.
Yeah.
That's the I'm taking a long drive from here to there. Why has it
Yeah.
gotta be? But otherwise, it's like what's the next thing we gotta do?
Yeah.
And so, I get a cancellation for a booking where I'm supposed to speak for a day. Well, now I got a whole day open. All right, well, it's still how I process. Like, what's the thing we should be trying to get done?
Yeah.
Um, and so, I think it's the triage of figuring out what those most important things are that are the
Yeah.
projects that are kind of in the background, and how do I make progress on that? Because the other alternative is to kind of like sit, mourn, and watch Judge Judy.
Right.
And the problem with that is those other things that keep you reminding yourself that you do the work. I mean, by taking off time that I've been given, and making sure I'm moving things forward, I feel about me that I'm the kind of person that is constantly pushing through. And it amazes me how the opportunity just seem to find that continual preparation. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
writing a couple of classes now. I don't have any particular opportunities to teach them. I don't know where they're going to be, but it's kind of just been resting on my mind and my heart that, hey,
Yeah.
this is something you should do. So as soon as I get time, full court press, let's get these banged out. It's kind of really amazing. You're surprised as to like when I open the folder. This is maybe the best thing I tell you. I open the folder where I have the classes that I've written stored, and when I wrote the first 2-day class, I was like Jake. I was like, this is it. This is my magnum opus. Like when I left high school, I was like, I am never going to college. I am never going any place where anybody makes me write a damn thing. That like I
Right.
am never writing a freaking paper.
Yeah.
I look at the list of these files and the PowerPoints and the textbooks, and like and like how the hell did this happen? And it's like my dad used to say to me, "How do you walk across China? You put one
Step
foot
at
in
a
front of the
time.
other. Yeah, one step at a
Right.
time."
Yep.
And so you just grind, man.
Yeah. And, Josh, to that point, I know when I get to that stage, sometimes it's just taking that action.
Hmm.
Just do one little thing, show you can do it, and just move forward.
Yeah.
And I actually have a counter rule. So when I'm feeling really good about something, I used to teach my kids this when they were growing up. There's a two sunset rule. If you're going to feel miserable about something or great about something, you've got two sunsets to live it out. At the end of that second sunset, it's done. You
Yep.
move forward and you go on with your life,
Yep.
so
Yeah, my dad's was something similar. It was like you never believe your own press releases, right? You never believe your biggest detractors, and you never believe your own press releases. It's the reality is always somewhere in the middle. And so, you are where you are by the grace of God. So give the credit there, kind of thing. Take peace with that, and go out there and I mean, I think one of my favorites. I don't even read the book "Can't Hurt Me."
I've
Uh,
never read it.
David Goggins. It's a really good book. That's the Navy SEAL guy that so famously like ran the marathon with
Oh, yep.
like duct tape around his leg because he had stress fractures in his legs. So I can't not run the race. I mean
Right.
that's off the table.
That's unacceptable, right?
Yeah, so let's just duct tape our legs and we'll be fine. Enough duct tape, they'll numb up. We'll be just fine. And So they ask him at the end of the book, if you get the audiobook version of that book, they ask him at the end of the book, it's like in a podcast format like this. And he said, look, I know it doesn't work this way, but the way I like to think about it is this. He says, I think I'm going to get to the end and I'm going to go see God. I think all of us do. And he pulls out a chart, and the chart says, all right, this is what you could have done, and this is what you did. He
Oh.
said, my goal for life is for God to pull up my chart and go, oh, wow.
Right. Holy shit.
Yeah, yeah, like I thought that was just such a cool way of looking. And, some people don't think that way. Just for me, in my mental way of looking at life, I just found that pretty fascinating.
That is, I'm going to remember that for life. That is phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was a really good say. The thing was, it wasn't even part of the book. It was a bonus interview that they had at the end, but it was just such a cool thing.
Well, it's funny because you can really visualize that, right? You can
Yeah.
really visualize that. Hey, here's a list of all the crap you could have gotten accomplished. You had 80 years to get all this done, and really you kind of just you
Yep.
fell short.
No, I mean, if you ever read Chernow's book, Hamilton, that's the book that actually spawned the play and everything like that.
Yeah,
The thing that was amazing about Hamilton is the guy only lived, I mean, lived half as long as most of the founders. But we
yeah,
just have so much that this guy wrote and did. He was an animal, and like it was almost, and in the play, they kind of pushed this idea that he had this sense of his own mortality. So he
yeah.
was just everything. I mean, he wrote of the Federalist Papers, he wrote like there's 78 of them, I think. He wrote like 50 of them. The other two guys
Wow.
contributed like I mean, like just the entire um, uh, financial system of the United States. He was the guy that came up with it out of whole cloth. I mean, just
Wow.
yeah, no, just a brilliant guy. But I mean, this like if you kept your foot on the gas, if you really did, giving yourself time to go get gas, change the oil,
Yeah, of course.
take care
Yeah.
of yourself. But like if I really, really wanted to see it, I like to think about it this way because I was a car guy. You spend all this time, doing stuff to the car, and then you're gonna get in the car and you're gonna drive to the grocery store and back. Why would you not take it out the salt flats, open this thing up, and just see what happens when you let it scream? Like,
Yeah.
how good, how good could I be? Like, how much is there in there? Like, am I a guy that's going to do 20 transactions a year? Am I a guy that's going to do 220 transactions a year? Am I going to be a guy that speaks in a room of 30 people? Or are they going to put me in a room of 3,000 people and I'm going to be okay? Like, how far can I go with what I got here? How far
Yeah.
does this go? So I don't know. To me, that's something worth trying to figure out.
I love the philosophy and I think it's great. I get that way too. I have friends of mine who say, "Oh my God, you're doing this and this and this and this and this. How do you do it all?" I don't know. I
Yeah,
I just
I
wake up
know.
and it's kind of like buried in my DNA. I have to do it, so I just go do it.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we're here to do something. Let's do the hell out of that thing.
Yeah. So Josh, you do a lot of speaking. You've written a couple of very impressive books, and I want to cover those before we get off for today. But we do have solopreneurs that get to the point where they're like, I just have trouble selling myself. I've got this passion, I've got this knowledge base, I've got something I am absolute genius at, but I have trouble selling myself. What advice would you give to somebody who's saying, listen, Josh, I'm amazing at this particular task, but telling people that and selling it is just, it's difficult for me because I don't like to sell.
I would say there's a couple of things. One, I think there's a formula that I really kind of I don't say I've patented, and somebody else probably I never heard it anyplace else. So I think there's three things that great businesses do. Great businesses anticipate customers. And I think we all as entrepreneurs try to do that. The second place is where I think we start to break down, which is empathy. We're so far removed from the person that needed this back when we started that we've forgotten what it's like to be them. So it's hard for us
Wow.
to speak to them, right?
Yeah.
So like for me, I think about when I go to explain the real estate contract to a customer, I think about how I felt as an agent the first time I saw it and thought, oh crap.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
There's a lot of words here, and I got to get somebody to sign this. And this is like a legal document with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on the line if they screw this up. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
that is the mindset I take into the explanation, because that allows me to take and do part three really well, which is pre-negotiate. I don't wait for objections to manifest. I answer the objections before they start from the standpoint of, if I was them, what would I be worried about, and how can I most persuasively handle this? So that's kind of the foundational idea that I would bring
Love it.
to all of this. And then, I think the thing to realize is that there's things that we want them to think that we can't come out and say. Like, if you come out and say it, it doesn't work. And the example I give all the time is, if you went out on a date, as a guy, my goal is for her to think, man, this guy would be an amazing boyfriend. But
Right.
I can't walk in and say, let me tell you what an amazing boyfriend I'm gonna be. Like, that doesn't work. I gotta land
Yeah.
the plane without saying the thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so, what is the behaviors? What are the things that make people feel the way that you need them to feel? It's not manipulation. It's, I know I have a good thing. I have to get past their natural defense. Very much like dating. I know that first no has nothing to do with me. It's got to do with the
Right.
20 other guys that bother her today already. So, like,
No question.
that no is the one that you're having trouble getting past for most people. And
Yeah.
that no's got nothing to do with you. So what you're trying to do is trying to unpack the BS that these other the brain damage these other folks have caused. These other folks that have been trying to sell something, to sit here and say, "Hey, look, I'm not them.
Yeah.
Take a look at what I got." And so, if you understand that's actually the process, it's not quite as disheartening, and you're coming at it from the standpoint. A friend told me this a long time ago, and it was really paradigm shifting. So maybe somebody needs to hear this. I was a homeschool kid, right? So, like, when it came to having game, I had, like, game was measured in negative numbers. Like, thank God they taught me negative numbers in school right before I started trying to ask girls out. So I understood where I was in the game front. I didn't
Yeah.
have any, right? And so, like, I would try to go talk to a girl, and I would get blown up, like, get away from me, kind of thing. Like, it was just, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I mean, as far as being bad or anything like that, I wasn't saying anything, off color or anything. And I asked a female friend, why, why is she treating me like this way? And she said something I will never forget. Have you ever thought about what it's like to be her? You're the 20th guy at lunch today to bother this gal. And it took the attention away from where it tends to go, me,
Yeah.
and put it back on them. And so I think that just attempting to empathetically understand them better, and then put yourself in the position to pre-negotiate, because you're thinking about what it's like to be them super well. It it helps you to anticipate better what needs to be said to get past the objection. I mean, in ballroom dancing terms, I was a ballroom dancer for years, right? You get to be exponentially better the second you stop thinking as a man where your feet need to be, and instead start thinking about where are her feet going to be, and how do I get her on the foot she needs to be on to do the
Wow.
thing I want to do.
That's an amazing way to look at it. I love it.
Glad it
Well,
helped.
everybody's favorite topic is themselves, right? So when we
Totally.
step outside of ourselves and think about others, it helps a lot. So great advice, Josh. Thank you.
Uh,
So do me a favor, talk a little bit about your books. So let's talk about Clothes for Life. Let's talk about Success for Life. What did you cover in those, and what were the main takeaways?
okay, sure. So, I mean, I guess we'll start with Roadmap. Roadmap
Sure.
was a book. I actually went back to all the things I said I was never going to do. I went back to college in my 30s.
Okay.
And so I'm in there. And the thing that blew me away is how bad the scholarship actually was amongst the scholars. Like, these guys would say stuff about how the world worked. And I'm like, guys, I was just out there this morning. It's nothing like that. Like, that doesn't, like, you try that out, like, in here, maybe, but
Yeah.
like out there, that's never going to fly.
Yeah.
And so I realized that kids were making financial choices. People, not even kids, were making financial choices. They didn't understand, like, how it worked. So the book was kind of like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but not just about real estate, like everything, but also with the math to teach you how to, like, back it up. So that was what that wound up being. And
And
then,
let me just clarify, that's the roadmap of the American dream.
yeah, the roadmap. I mean, the reason why that's the title is my belief, and I genuinely hold this belief. the only path to really being successful in the United States of America for most people is going to not be to live within your means. It's to consume below your means and allocate as much as you possibly can as early as you possibly can to invest. The investor class has outperformed just about every other wage group, you pick the subset. The folks that I've got a friend, he's a teacher. The guy's got more than $1 million in a retirement account because he just
Yeah.
started early and he's been on it. So
Yeah.
like it doesn't even matter the career, right? So yeah, that's that one. And then later on, after I've been speaking for quite a while, McGraw-Hill wanted me to do this book, Close for Life, because I was talking about something that's this very foreign idea in real estate of not closing deals, but how to close customers for life. And the three places where we don't get that right: we get ourselves wrong, we get our customers wrong, we get our product wrong. Just those are the only I think those are the only three things that we get wrong: us, them, and the thing we're trying to sell. How could
Yeah.
we possibly have problems? So that was Close for Life. Is really, it's a book about real estate for real estate agents, for them to get their head around themselves, what it means to be a solo entrepreneur, what it means to run that kind of business. And for any entrepreneur, especially the first part of that book is really good because it talks about things like standards, how to have the standards for your business, how to set them up and get buy-in from yourself that this is what we make here. If it's
Yeah.
not this, it doesn't roll. Nobody sees it. If it's not this, and so that idea of giving yourself brand loyalty for what you make, like we make good stuff here. This is who we are. So yeah, that's Close for Life. And then Success for Life is actually a more of a fun project that we did. It hit #1 on the Amazon bestseller list.
Nice.
Yeah, it was actually nationally and internationally. I didn't know I had fans elsewhere, but uh, that one was an anthology that we did with 8 other guys. I invited a bunch of other people to be part of it, but the final crew wound up being me and 8 other guys. Um, each of them very successful in their own right. One guy's a college professor that's got a couple of master's degrees in there. I mean, just all different aspects of life, and each one wrote a chapter on what they thought it was that made them successful.
That's
What the big
amazing.
thing. Yeah, and I thought they were going to maybe start to be very similar. Man, I mean, the basic idea that people took it like I couldn't believe that the variance in what they talked about, what they thought mattered to them. And so yeah, and then the most recent project that we're working on is a high school financial literacy textbook that's going to the editor, I think, later this week or the next week. So yeah.
Nice. Congratulations on all of that and your Know Your Shit podcast, which I think is amazing. And I would highly recommend any of our listeners go and listen to that podcast. I like your no nonsense interviewing style and feedback. You really cut through the crap, which I think is great. So, one last question before we go, Josh.
Mhm.
We were talking about success, and success is a pretty broad term. What's
Sure.
your definition of success?
You know, um, if the people in my life, I'm trying to think of exactly how the saying goes. It says something like, when you came into this world, you wept while the rest of the world applauded. If you could leave the world where you're happy about what you did and the rest of the world weeps, you've done something right. If the people that matter to me could say that was a stand-up guy, I'd be okay with that. That's what I
Love
want.
that.
Yeah, that's what it's about, man. We do the business will always be a part of life. It's not life. So making sure we don't lose sight of what it means to do the thing well. Why do we do this? It is to empower us to have what we need to take care of our people. One of the things I talk about in Close for Life is the idea of standards. And one of my standards, it served me very well in real estate, but it's not a real estate standard, is I answer my phone. And the reason why that is, as I said, it has nothing to do with real estate. I want them to be able to say, standing over my coffin, he was the one guy I knew that if I didn't matter how busy he was, if I needed to get somebody, the one guy I knew that would always pick up my phone calls was that guy.
Yeah.
That'd be okay. That'd be okay.
Awesome. Josh, I can't think of a better way to end a show. Thank you for that. So, Josh, thank you for being a guest. It was a true pleasure and honor to have you on.
Jake, it was great hanging out with you, man. Great having a chat.
Thanks for checking out Own the Room with Jake Stahl. If you've gotten value from this episode, share it with the solopreneur in your life who wants to know how to communicate to be seen, heard, and respected. Review and rate the show wherever you check out podcasts, and grab your copy of Own the Room, How to Communicate to be Seen, Heard, and Respected. We'll catch you next week on Own the Room.